To dive in, today we're cracking open Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, a classic.
It's been a bestseller for ages, right? People keep coming back to it.
Definitely. I think what's so compelling is how Kiyosaki uses his own life for the framework. He
Hmm.
talks about having these two father figures growing up, his own father and his best friend's dad.
Right, the poor dad and the rich dad.
Yeah, and they both had totally different ways of looking at money, and Kiyosaki got to see the world through both of their lenses.
It's wild how impactful those early influences can be, right?
Mm.
Like, his poor dad was obviously a smart guy, he was a teacher, but he just struggled financially.
Mm.
But the rich dad, this self-made entrepreneur, he just seemed to thrive. And Kiyosaki realized it all came down to their mindsets.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder, what money lessons did we all just absorb growing up without even realizing?
Oh, for sure. And that leads right into one of Kiyosaki's biggest points. It's not about how much you earn, it's about what you own.
Exactly. He's all about building your asset column.
Okay, so let's break that down. Because I feel like a lot of people, myself included, we hear that word asset, so we
Right.
need a little refresher. What exactly is an asset in Kiyosaki's world?
So he keeps it pretty straightforward. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. So that could be rental income from properties or dividends from stocks,
Oh.
royalties from a book you wrote, anything like that.
Gotcha.
And here's where it gets interesting because he kind of flips the script on how we normally think about things. Like, he'll tell you straight up, a house is often a liability, not an asset.
Well, hold on. How is a house not an asset? You own it right.
See, that's what most people think. And Kiyosaki's like, nope. Yeah, you might own it, and yeah, it might go up in value eventually, but what about all the money going out?
The mortgage and all that.
Exactly. Mortgage, property taxes, repairs, all that stuff eats away at your cash flow. He says people get so caught up in thinking a bigger house equals success, but it keeps them stuck in that rat race.
So the rat race is that whole working just to pay bills, never really getting ahead, even if you're making decent money.
Exactly. You're just on that treadmill, and Kiyosaki's like, look, you got to build that asset column. That's your ticket off this thing.
Instead of working for money, make money work for you.
That's the goal.
And this is where he talks about financial literacy, which I love.
Yeah.
Because it's not something we're really taught in school, is it?
No kidding.
And Kiyosaki's adamant that if you don't understand how money works, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, you're playing with a handicap,
You're
right?
going blind. I love that story he tells about the 10 cents an hour lesson, where he takes that job at his friend's dad's store
Oh.
for what seemed like ridiculously low pay.
Right.
But there's a bigger lesson there.
No, totally. It wasn't about the money. It was about young Kiyosaki getting that early exposure to business and using his imagination. His rich dad was basically showing him how to create value.
Right, like that's a skill you could use your whole life.
Totally. It reminds me of when Kiyosaki and his friend Mike started their first business as kids.
Oh, you mean the comic book library?
Yes.
Classic. Talk
Yeah.
about entrepreneurial thinking, right? They saw a need. They found a solution
Resourceful little guys.
and even made some cash, before they were even teenagers.
There you go.
Although their entrepreneurial journey wasn't always smooth sailing, was it? What about that whole toothpaste debacle?
Oh man, the homemade toothpaste incident. Let's just say they learned a very quick lesson about counterfeiting laws, that's for sure.
Whoops.
But even in that, that failure, Kiyosaki's rich dad saw the value.
Yeah.
He was encouraging that creativity and action. Embrace the mistakes, are part of the process.
Right. You got to break some eggs.
Exactly.
It's amazing how many lessons were packed into Kiyosaki's childhood. Like later on when he buys that $1.2 million apartment building using creative financing, that's real-world application right there.
Oh yeah. That one really shows you how he took what he learned early on, found that undervalued asset, made the deal work, and ended up building some serious wealth through real estate.
It goes to show there's opportunities everywhere if you know where to look.
100%. You just got to keep your eyes open and be willing to jump in.
And speaking of jumping in, Kiyosaki's big on that whole Alamo mentality.
Yeah, yes. The Alamo mentality.
What does that even mean in a financial context?
So it's basically about not being afraid to fail. Learning from your mistakes and using them to fuel your growth. Kiyosaki loves that whole how the Texans took a loss and turned it into a rallying cry. It's that grit that he thinks is so crucial for anyone who wants to win with money.
And so you're saying resilience is just as important as strategy.
For sure. It's all connected. You have to be able to roll with the punches, learn and adapt if you want to achieve real financial success.
It's like he's saying you got to get comfortable with being
Or
uncomfortable.
a little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. You're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
It's how you bounce back that matters.
Exactly. Kiyosaki even tells this story about this group of businessmen back in the 1920s. These guys were killing it right at the top of their game.
Oh, yeah.
And then, boom, they lost everything.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even if you're making tons of money, if you don't know how to manage it, you're vulnerable.
You're not invincible, that's for sure.
Not at all. It makes you think about building wealth sustainably.
Right.
Like, it's not a one-time thing.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
And speaking of long-term thinking, Kiyosaki gets into this whole thing about corporations,
Oh, yeah.
which I think throws some people off because they think, corporations, those are for like big companies, not me.
Right.
But he's got a different take.
He does. He sees corporations as these powerful tools, and not just for the super wealthy either.
Yeah, he really breaks down how they can help you protect your assets and be smarter about taxes.
It's like having access to a whole different set of rules for the money game rules most people don't even know about.
Which makes you think, why don't they teach us this stuff in school?
Right.
It feels like such a fundamental thing.
Absolutely. And Kiyosaki argues that this lack of financial education is exactly why so many people stay stuck in that rat race.
They're trading their time for money, and then a big chunk of it just disappears.
Taxes, expenses, you name it. And they don't even realize there are other ways to play the game.
And Kiyosaki's like, look, I'm going to show you the playbook. He's all about understanding where your money's going and making it work harder for you.
He's big on that. It's about being mindful, intentional with your finances.
Right. Not just letting it slip through your fingers.
And this is where financial literacy comes in. But it's not about memorizing a bunch of formulas or anything.
Yeah, he's not about that.
No. He wants you to get the fundamentals, like really understand how money flows, and then use that knowledge to make smarter decisions.
And he even created that CASHFLOW board game.
Right.
Which is brilliant because it makes learning about money fun.
It does.
Yeah.
It's engaging. It's interactive.
Yeah.
And it gets the point across way better than any textbook.
Totally. It's like, okay, I see how this works in action. But he's also a big believer in actually doing something with that knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. Knowledge without action is just potential.
Exactly. You got to take action, even small steps to break out of that fear and inertia.
He always says you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Investing isn't rocket science. But it does require study and time in the market.
You got to put in the work.
Yep. But it's doable for anyone who's willing to learn.
And the cool thing is Kiyosaki gives you a starting point. He doesn't just drop all this on you and say, good luck.
He's very practical in that way.
He's like, okay, step one, read a book. Go to a seminar. Put what you learn into practice.
Start small, build momentum.
Exactly. It's a process.
It's a journey.
And he talks about diversifying your income streams.
Right. That's huge.
He has this whole breakdown of the 4 income quadrants. Employee, self-employed, business owner, investor.
And understanding which quadrant you're in can be a total game changer.
Because it changes your whole perspective on earning potential.
100%. He explains how employees and self-employed people, they're often trading time for money.
Which is limited, right? There are only so many hours in a day.
Exactly. But business owners and investors, they create systems that can generate income even when they're not physically working.
Passive income, that's the dream.
Right. And he tells this great story to illustrate this about the 2 contractors hired to bring water to a village.
Oh yeah, I love this one.
So one guy, Ed, he just grabs his buckets and starts hauling water back and forth.
Back-breaking work.
Right. And he can only carry so much at a time.
He's limited.
Exactly. But the other contractor, Bill, he's thinking bigger picture.
He's playing chess, not checkers.
Exactly. Bill spends months developing a plan, getting funding, and building a pipeline that connects the village directly to the water source.
Smart.
Right. And the best part, he can charge less than Ed, provide a more reliable service, and his business can scale way easier.
Talk about a win-win.
Right. And that's the power of thinking long-term and creating systems that work for you.
It's about working smarter, not just harder.
100%.
But Kiyosaki also acknowledges that fear can really hold us back from taking those big swings.
Oh, yeah. Fear and self-doubt. Those are big ones.
And he's like, look, I get it. We all feel it, but you got to push past it.
He often talks about Colonel Sanders didn't hit it big until he was in his 60s after years of rejections.
Wow.
Right. But he kept going.
Persistence.
Exactly. We all have that little voice telling us we can't do it.
Our inner critic.
Yeah, you got to learn to quiet that voice and just take action.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I know, but so worth it.
So how do we do it? How do we silence those doubts?
Well, Kiyosaki talks about disguised laziness.
Disguised laziness.
Yeah, like it's not about being lazy in the traditional sense, like sitting on the couch all day.
Okay.
It's about being busy but not productive. Going through the motions but not really moving towards your goals.
Oh, I see, like being busy but not actually getting anywhere.
Exactly. You could be working a job you hate just because it's familiar.
Comfort zone.
Yeah, but is it really serving you? Kiyosaki wants you to be honest with yourself about that.
So it's about aligning your actions with your goals.
Yes, figure out what truly matters to you and then make sure your daily life reflects that.
Don't be afraid to make a change.
And Kiyosaki has this really interesting strategy for overcoming financial procrastination.
Hit me with it.
Pay yourself first.
Pay myself first. But what if I don't have any extra money left over?
That's the old way of thinking. Kiyosaki's saying flip the script. Even if it's just a small amount, set aside for yourself first, then figure out the rest.
So it's about prioritizing your financial well-being even before paying bills.
In a way, yeah. It's about shifting your mindset from scarcity to abundance.
Because when you tell yourself you can't afford to invest, you're reinforcing that scarcity mindset.
Exactly. But when you make it a non-negotiable expense, even a small one, it creates this positive pressure to find solutions.
To get creative about generating more income.
Exactly. It's like tricking your brain into prioritizing your financial growth.
I like it. So pay yourself first. What else?
Kiyosaki's also big on surrounding yourself with the right people.
Your tribe.
Yeah. Find your mentors, your guides, people who are already doing what you want to do.
He learned so much from his own rich dad, right?
Exactly. And he wants everyone to have that kind of guidance.
Because investing in good advice can save you so much headache down the road.
It's true. It's like having a team of experts in your corner, helping you navigate the complexities of the financial world.
And it doesn't just have to be financial advisors.
No, not at all. Kiyosaki emphasizes the importance of developing a diverse skill set, sales, marketing, communication, leadership.
It's about becoming well-rounded.
Exactly. The more skills you have, the more adaptable you are, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes your way.
And don't forget about those hidden extras Kiyosaki's always on the lookout for.
Oh, yeah. He loves a good deal.
He's like a master negotiator.
Yeah.
He calls it being an Indian giver.
Which basically means being willing to walk away if you're not getting what you want.
Know your worth.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask for what you want. You might be surprised at what you can get.
He tells that great story about buying a property for $9,000, fixing it up and flipping it for $25,000.
Yeah, and then he used the profit to buy his dream car.
See? That's what I'm talking about.
It shows his knack for spotting opportunities and taking calculated risks.
He's not afraid to make bold moves.
Not at all. And he encourages us to do the same, to train our minds to see beyond the obvious and act decisively when others hesitate.
Like that story about his friend who bought that rundown house that everyone else thought was a disaster waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah, what was it? 4 extra empty lots came with that property?
Yep. He tore down the house, sold the lots, and made a killing.
Talk about turning lemons into lemonade.
Right. Sometimes the greatest opportunities are disguised as problems.
You got to know how to spot them. And Kiyosaki's a big believer in making bold offers, even if they seem low or unrealistic.
What's the worst that could happen? They say no.
Exactly. But they might say yes, and then you're in business.
It's all about thinking big, even if you're starting small.
He talks about pooling resources with friends or finding creative ways to leverage your existing assets to achieve bigger goals.
Don't be afraid to think outside the box.
And surround yourself with people who support your ambitions.
It's like teamwork, but on a whole other level, you're actually putting skin in the game together.
Exactly. And having that shared vision can be really powerful.
It is. And it reminds me of how important mentors can be. Someone who's already walked the path you're on.
Oh, totally. Kiyosaki is a huge advocate for finding mentors.
He says it's like having a shortcut to wisdom, right?
Yeah, you're learning from someone else's experiences, their successes, their mistakes.
Which can save you a ton of time and energy.
No doubt. He talks about studying successful investors like Warren Buffett, for example.
The Oracle of Omaha.
Exactly. Kiyosaki took his principles and applied them to his own strategies.
All right.
It's all about finding those people you resonate with and seeing how they operate.
And I love that he's not just all about taking knowledge in. He's big on paying it forward, too.
100%. He encourages everyone to share what they've learned, become mentors themselves.
Because the more you give,
The more you get back.
right, it creates that cycle of abundance.
Exactly. And it's not just about money either. It's about knowledge, experience, support.
It's about lifting each other up.
That's it. And Kiyosaki even talks about the importance of tithing. giving back to causes you believe
He
in.
learned that from his rich dad, right?
He did. It was a core part of his financial philosophy.
Which I think a lot of people might find surprising. They think you have to be ruthless to be successful.
It's a common misconception for sure.
But Kiyosaki's like, no compassion and generosity, those are just as important.
Absolutely. It's about creating a life of abundance in all areas.
So how do we find those mentors, those guiding lights?
Kiyosaki says opportunities are everywhere. Take a class, attend a seminar.
Even just buy someone you admire a cup of coffee and pick their brain.
Exactly. Be proactive. Don't wait for opportunities to come. You go out and create them.
Because those golden opportunities, sometimes they're hiding in plain sight.
They are. And you got to be ready to spot them. Like Kiyosaki gets really fired up about bargain hunting.
Oh yeah, especially when the market takes a dip.
He's like, it's a sale. Everything's on sale.
He compares it to a department store clearance.
Exactly. But instead of clothes, it's real estate or stocks.
So when everyone else is panicking, Kiyosaki's like, this is my time to shine.
He's looking for those deals that other people are too afraid to touch.
He tells that story about helping his friend invest some of his college fund in a house during a real estate slump.
Oh, yeah?
They got an incredible deal, the market bounced back, and boom, huge profit.
And they used a 1031 exchange to roll those profits into another investment without getting hit by a massive tax bill.
See, this is why we need to learn this stuff. There are strategies out there that most people don't even know about.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki's breaking it all down for us.
He's giving us the playbook.
He really is. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's not just a book, it's a roadmap.
To financial freedom. So as we wrap up here, any final words of wisdom you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the biggest takeaway from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that we all have the power to change our financial destinies.
We don't have to be stuck in the rat race.
Exactly. It's about education, taking action, and surrounding ourselves with the right people.
It's about challenging the status quo and creating a life we love.
And it all starts with a single step.
So go out there and take it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We'll see you next time.